Welcome to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. We are your hosts, Kate.
And G. And this is the podcast where we decode the cosmic vibes of your favorite albums and the people that help bring them into the universe. So, welcome to our latest episode. We are filming this fresh off of Friday the 13th. And before we get into this week's episode and the album we will be breaking down, which is also fairly timely, I need to talk to you because you love Friday the 13th.
I do, yes.
And you did something yesterday that you wanted to tell me about, and we said we'd save it for the podcast. So now is your time to divulge in what happened to you yesterday.
Okay, yes. I do love when Friday the 13th happened. Last year, I actually got a tattoo on Friday the 13th, but this year, I actually last minute realized it was a Friday the 13th. And for the longest time, I've been wanting to go to Sleep No More in New York. So for anyone that does not know what that is, I don't want to give any spoilers because it's a very unique experience. But it's basically an immersive theater show that's, I believe, loosely based on Macbeth by Shakespeare. And it was wild. It was so wild. I went alone, and even if you go in a group, you're encouraged to split away from your group because it makes your experience more unique, I suppose. It's more individual. And it is hard to explain it. Like I said, I don't want to give any spoilers, but when you're walking around, there's the characters in the show, but you choose who to follow essentially throughout the show. It was just unlike anything I've ever done before. I'm really glad that I did it alone because honestly, not gonna lie, it was nerve-wracking going in there. They purposely kind of disorient you. But by the end, I was going off on my own, making my own paths. So it was kind of a nice metaphor. I was actually just talking about this. It's a nice metaphor for life, in a way that I did not expect to come out of that. Where it's sometimes things can be scary, but after a little time, you settle in and it's not scary anymore.
I have a question because I did this probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and you said something that triggered me a little bit. I didn't realize you were supposed to follow the character.
Well,
And that explains why I was confused by the whole thing, because I think I was just wandering around, not knowing what was happening or what I was supposed to be doing. But hearing you talk about it now, I'm like, wait, I think I need to try it again because that is not what I remember. I just remember
yeah.
being lost and thinking I was doing something wrong.
Well, you might have. The sad part is it may close, it's actually closing quite soon, or supposed
Oh
to be
no.
quite soon. I believe the end of October as of right now, but they have kept extending it. I don't know if this is the final extension. It very well may be. So if you're interested, you should go check that out. But yeah, pro tip, if you haven't been yet, basically to keep the action moving, yeah, I would say you'll inevitably bump into a character. So it's your choice to follow them. I mean, you that's kind of the cool part. Literally the entire experience, you don't have to follow the characters. It's really up to you what you want to do, but I enjoyed my experience by honestly, it was actually a great experiment in following your intuition. That's how I personally went about it. Of if I was watching something and either I couldn't see or I just felt like I was meant to be somewhere else, I followed that. And so that's kind of I let my intuition guide me. Um, and I highly recommend doing it that way. But really, I mean, that's what makes it I'm pretty sure literally no one has the same experience when you go, which is why it's so cool.
Yeah. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I hopefully will get to do it before they close down. Yeah, it's I haven't thought about that in so long, and you told me you went. I was like, wait a minute, I think I know what this is, but I don't think I did it right. Cool. And I feel like, what you got out of it kind of is a perfect segue into the album we'll be talking about today, which we're wearing matching sweaters. And while that was not done on purpose, it is done for a purpose. We're talking about our favorite band of all time, Paramore, and a record that means a lot to the both of us. Um, Brand New Eyes. I know for me, it's my favorite album from them. I think the same for you, right?
Hands down.
Yeah. I feel like early on when I used to say that, people would look at me crazy. But as I've gotten older, I've come across more and more people that call this their favorite as well. So it's nice to be in kinship with those folk. But yeah, we'll be diving in on this record today, Brand New Eyes. For context, this came out in September of 2009. We'll get into the proper release date a little later when we reveal the big three. But that's important because that was, for me, kind of the first, I think either the beginning or middle of my freshman year in college, or maybe going into sophomore year. But 18 years old, becoming an adult, figuring out life, all of that transitionary period. And I think I've said on the first Paramore episode we did, they're the band that means the most to me and has for every major life milestone I feel like I've had, there's been a Paramore album to go with it. From moving to Mississippi and discovering All We Know Is Falling, to moving back to New Jersey and having Riot there for that, and of course now Brand New Eyes for when I was entering college and adulthood and all of that. So I'm excited to break this one down.
Yeah, and I believe that makes it 15 years old this year.
I don't like that. In my head, this is like 5 years old, maybe, like at the most. But 15, wow. Like thinking about where we were 15 years ago, like we were most definitely different people, and that's
For sure.
a little like almost half of our lifespan, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and it was definitely a very tough time for me in my personal life. But hands down, like this album is for sure top 10 albums for me. Um, Holds a very, very special place in my heart. Because back in 2009, yeah, I was 18, about to turn 19. And unfortunately, it's a time when my dad had passed away from cancer just shortly after in December. So while I had listened to this album, it definitely it resonated with me as I was going through those feelings. He had cancer and it really only lasted like a year, um, which was shorter than the expectancy that it should have been. I had to deal with a lot in a very short time because I was just starting college. Like that's a whole thing to deal with in itself on top of this. So, and this album to me deals with a lot of emotions, a lot of confusing emotions, I guess, of there, but it was everything to me because it was the sadness, it was the anger, it was so much uh kind of uncertainty, like why is this happening and whatnot. So while it helped me through the period even before that when it first came out, it took on a whole other meaning once my dad actually ended up passing away in December. And then I know we'll get into specific songs in a bit, but like All I Wanted and Careful, like there were just so many songs on this album that really helped me get the emotions out that I didn't even know how to describe. I'm sure if anyone else that's listening has lost a parent or anyone close to them, you can honestly like kind of go numb, especially when the person is that close and important to you. And it can be really hard to process. To be honest, I don't even know if I've fully processed at this point in my life. So it's quite interesting that it's 15 years that have gone by. I don't know honestly what I would have done if I hadn't had this album at that time. So as I said, it holds a very, very special and meaningful place in my life. And even after that, this is an album. If I get angry, like I will go in my car, blast this album, and just drive around, and it really helps get those emotions out because I think especially as women in society, it's just harder, I guess, to express emotions such as anger because we get looked at as, a bitch or whatever you want to call it. It's like, oh, but you got to be the nice girl or whatever. But it's like, no, I'm pissed off right now, So this album has always been really helpful in kind of processing those emotions and kind of says the things that I need to say without me saying it.
Totally. And I think this is a perfect example of how music is very subjective. Because while, this got you through what you were going through, like I was going through something completely different, but leaned on this album to get me through that as well. I think ultimately, though, the one thing that is similar is this theme of loss. I think you were the loss of a loved one. For me, I feel like it was a loss of innocence. And kind of like in that period of like, okay, I'm no longer a kid, the people who were my heroes are not actually perfect. They do wrongs and make mistakes and all of that, and like how that affects your life and what you're dealing with. And I think that's why this is the album that, for lack of a better phrase here, opened my eyes and kind of made me look at the world in a different way. And when I saw the interviews from the band and they were talking about that theme as well, of kind of like looking at something through brand new eyes to kind of see the other side of whatever situation it is you're dealing with, that really was something that continues to resonate with me. And it's one of those albums that I can revisit all the time and never get sick of it. And while you have some that you listen to and it transports you back into that like time period you were in, I wouldn't say that does that for me in like the happy nostalgic way. Like it puts me back into that like anger and rage and like frustration that I was feeling in that time period. But also, all of the things that you called out are on this album, but there's one I think it's not as obvious. There is a little bit of hope on this record, but you gotta like dig deep to find it, outside of the only exception, but we'll get into that when we get into it. There is a little bit of hope too. Like there is a lot of anger, there is a lot of distrust and frustration. Um, but I think the reason why we love it so much is because it's not just the woe is me, let me be angry and rageful. Like there is still some positivity hidden in the meaning. And I think that's what I love so much about Paramore. It's like they can say the hard things and they can say the deep stuff and not leave you feeling like the world is hopeless, despite how hopeless it may feel at times. You still have a little bit of like, well, there's something left to hold on to here. And that's what Paramore's music has always done for me.
I love that. And I'm very glad you said the hope part because that is literally like, yeah, I can't believe I didn't say it either. That is why I love Paramore. I think I've even written about this before, but like that is the common theme throughout all of their albums for me for sure is there's always the thread of hope. I think that's very important. I actually have a tattoo. The tattoo is based off of Last Hope, which I actually low key think should be on this album. I don't know why. That just always gives me that vibe. Yeah, that I really do appreciate that about Paramore. And I think thinking about this album cover, that just came to, I wasn't thinking about it, but it just came to mind of like the butterfly, especially that it's separated in its parts. Like there's so much I could say about it, but I think to summarize what I'm thinking, it comes down to transformation, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we talk about this a lot, but that's what what's the phrase? You grow through what you go through. And I think that's very much a theme on this.
Yes. All right. And now that we've talked about the heavy stuff, let's get into some of our favorites, I guess, on this record.
Yeah, let's do it.
If there was ever a song that would be my theme song, it would be Brick by Boring Brick. Um, I would get the lyrics to the song tattooed on my body if it wouldn't blur out in 10 years. This is just one that has always resonated so much in me. And I feel like I don't want to divulge too much into the situation I was going into or going through, but I feel like it kind of answered all the questions that I didn't realize I had and gave me the answers that I was searching for within myself without even knowing there was ways to express how I was feeling. And I think that's just the power of music, right? Like it says the things that we can't say ourselves. And the themes about having, you know, your illusions shattered and, you know, burying the castle, burying the fantasy, and realizing what's real, whether it's true or not, whether it's true, whether it's positive or negative. Like, unfortunately, that's your reality and you got to kind of have to deal with it. And the people, kind of like I alluded to earlier, like the people that you thought were your heroes and your saviors are not necessarily that. So that's always a standout for me. Playing God is a song that was something that played out for me years later. So once that situation happened and I had that song to come back to, it was like a crazy, like eye-opening moment. But when I first heard the record, that was another song that, you know, really connected with me. And I thought I knew what it meant and how, you know, like all the feelings that were brought up in that song. But then once I went through the situation that I went through with an ex-friend of mine, then it kind of like, no, this is what this is about. And then of course, all I wanted, no words, no words. Like it's a saying that plays throughout my life all the time. Like all I wanted was XYZ and then not getting that thing. In this case, I will say, I remember having a crush on this kid in high school that like never returned, always unrequited love for us poor Scorpio Venuses. But this song, I remember back in the MySpace days, putting up my little bulletin of all I wanted was you. That song really resonated with me of like, all I wanted was you and I don't have you. So those are my three. Of course, there's tons more I could talk about because this album is just
No skips.
no skips, literally no skips.
Yeah, I love every song on this album for sure. Top top favorite hands down is All I Wanted. It's that feeling of longing.
Mhm.
That was actually the song, like after my dad had passed away, that was the song that I remember really, really resonating with. And again, different context, but it was kind of like all I wanted was you. Like I just wish you could be back in my life. And the what really gets me on that song, it's verse 3. So it's I could follow you to the beginning, just relive the start, and maybe then we'd remember to slow down at all of our favorite parts. And I'm just like, that was really, really resonant at the time. And also even the part, I think it says when the world treats you way too fairly. And
No,
I
that's the first verse.
okay, yeah, first verse. Um that line too of just that feeling of like, why are all these things happening to me? Like, you know,
Mhm.
it's kind of the irony of it, but just like, can I just get a break right now? It's just I love like that song. And I know we talked, if you haven't listened to our first Paramore episode, maybe go back and listen to that. We talk a bit about our when we were young experience when we saw this song live first, for the first time ever. And just like the emotion of that song, there's so much to it. Actually, I mean, we had a great time. It was a very special experience seeing it live, but I think about the have you I'm sure you've seen it. I feel like it's circulated around. I think they were playing Bonnaroo a little bit after when we were young, and there's clips of this song, and Haley just like for the All I Wanted Was You, like that's in the middle. You just see this look over her face. It's like I feel like it's some she like tapped into a different version of herself because it just I don't even know the word. Like it just chills every time. Like you can just tell she is in the freaking zone.
Mhm.
Have you seen that video? Do you know what I'm
I
talking about?
have, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have like the colored tears. Like, yeah. Um and then my other favorite is actually the opener on this album, Careful. That song, I got chills actually when I was re-listening to it for this podcast. It just I think it really resonates with my Capricorn moon. Um, but whenever I get that is like the go-to. I mean, granted, it's the first song on the album, but that is my go-to. Like I was saying, if I'm angry and I like get in my car or whatever, I'm just like it just I don't know, it just resonates with all the anger. I mean, I guess ignorance can be kind of used for the same purpose, but
Hmm.
and I do love that song as well. But Careful, there I think what I love about Careful is it combines actually the anger with the feeling of hope that you were talking about. Um,
Hmm.
so yes, I do love all of those.
Okay, I will say I forgot one, and I can't believe I forgot it. Turn It Off, another special one for me. Yeah, got me through some hard times. But the acoustic version of that one, just tearjerker
Ooh,
every single
yeah.
time.
There's a lot of
Um,
good acoustic YouTube videos. I love like that the middle of the album, like Feeling Sorry, Lines Over
yeah,
Love, all of those. I love the acoustics that are online.
yeah. No skips, as we said.
For fun this time around, I know we've done it on a couple episodes, but let's maybe see if we have the same guesses for the singles of the album as far as their zodiac signs.
So Ignorance was the first single.
Mhm. On
Are we
three.
going? Okay.
Again on three. One, two, three. Aries.
Taurus?
How
What?
do you get Taurus from that?
What?
I
Wait,
feel
what
like
was your
it's
guess?
Aries.
No. No, I can't agree. I don't explain to me how you got Aries from
It
that.
it is so that song, like energy wise, is so fiery, so like I don't even need to be like it just it gets your heart rate up. And I feel like there's this it's very I don't know if this is the right word, but like protagonistic in my view. It's just like I just picture, Aries obviously are known for I actually just saw a meme recently. It was like Aries could start an argument in a room alone. Like that's the vibe that that song gives.
Interesting. See, I feel like the song is about an Aries, written by a Taurus.
Fair,
Like it's a
also
Taurus
fair.
speaking to an Aries.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting though that you think Aries. Well, okay, so 0 for 0 on that one.
Okay.
This the second single I believe of this cycle was Brick by Boring Brick
Okay. You start off the count.
on three. So 1, 2, 3.
Pisces. Okay, well at least we both have water.
I didn't even say mine. You knew what it was. But I think mine is a very biased point of view. I can definitely see Pisces with the fantasy and the yes. Yes.
Now
Yes.
now you know where I'm coming from when I say Scorpio for everything that I love. Now you understand.
um okay, so 0 for 0 on that one. And then the last one, I swear if we don't get this one,
I had there's like there is a guess that would be at the top, like the easy guess, but I think it's actually something else.
but I think the easy guess is the one that I was thinking, and I think it's wrong.
Interesting. Well, let's
Okay.
take it and then,
Go with the one you think it is, and then we'll discuss what we thought the easy one was.
yeah, okay. Three, two, one.
Scorpio Venus.
Yeah, well, it's a Scorpio.
But distinctively a Scorpio Venus. But I was gonna say Libra because it was the
Yeah,
love song.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we get like bonus points because
we
we have
got
two of the same. But then when I went to start singing it in my mind, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is not a Libra song. This
no,
is
yeah, it's
Scorpio
very
who's finally found someone that like is the exception to what has been written in the cosmos of it's very difficult for specifically Scorpio Venus to find love. So
exactly.
yeah.
There's like a lot of distrust actually in that song, but it's talking about it's both distrusting and also full of love. um, but yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And I know it's not a single, but just for fun, I feel like we should also do All I Wanted, which is pretty easy if you ask me.
Not for me. I feel like it could be. any of the signs almost. But the one I'm gonna say is gonna be obvious, but whenever you're ready for the countdown.
1:30. 1, 2, 3. Scorpio.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, that
Yeah,
wasn't as
that,
scary
but
as I thought.
we did say the same for anyone that couldn't hear that.
I didn't want to commit. I didn't want to be wrong.
Well, we got 2. We got half of them. 2 out of the 4.
We got like 3 because we got the 2 on the 1, so extra points. We got bonus points. All right. Now that we've done that, shall we get into the actual big 3 of this album, which officially came out September 29th of 2009. And if you've listened to this podcast before, to no surprise, I'm a rule follower. I'm a literalist, if you will. If you're telling me the birthday is September 29th, then I know that the sun sign is a Libra.
Yeah, interesting, because you think with my Capricorn moon, I'd want to follow the structure, but I like to go by the energy versus the day itself. In my opinion, this album should be a Capricorn.
Interesting. Okay. I will defend its Libradom because of the elements of balance on this record. And again, diving into what was happening to Paramore at the time, I think this album was their search for equal balance amongst the band, like peace within all of that, which is everything that Libra stands for. So for me, it being a Libra sun makes perfect sense. I understand you wanting it to be Capricorn, but maybe Capricorn shows up somewhere else in the chart. Which actually, maybe, just maybe, it's a Capricorn rising.
That was my second guess. That is on my list.
Just maybe. I think there's definitely Scorpio in this album. It's big 3, and if there's not, then I don't know what to do with myself.
See, I don't have any Scorpio in my guesses.
I feel like there's Scorpio in this. I feel like the anger and the frustration and like the only argument against it is it's not vengeful, but not every Scorpio is vengeful. It's very emotional. It's a very emotional record. So I'm gonna stand 10 toes down. Scorpio moon, Capricorn rising.
Okay. And I think I Capricorn sun, Virgo moon, Aries rising.
Interesting. Oh my gosh. Dude. Okay, so in looking at it, the rising makes sense. Because I think what made us think one way for that can be played a different way for what this actually turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
The moon, however, is boggling, but we'll talk through that and maybe it'll make sense. The rising sign is a Cancer.
I mean,
when you think about it,
yeah,
it lines up, it makes sense. The emotions, where the band was, Haley kind of taking on that like figure of I need to keep this all together, all of that, like this notion of not necessarily being provoked and fighting back, but kind of like, how like Cancers, they're the crab. So they have a hard shell, but on the inside, they're big softies. I think that's what this album presents itself as, with a lot of the energy on the record, where you think it's one thing, but when you really dive in, it's, you're crying. You're not really raging at everything. You're kind of crying while she sounds like she's raging.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because I think what's coming to mind for me, not to say that the first 2 albums before this weren't, we talked about, the first one, obviously it was angsty, like, not to say that there wasn't anger on the other albums, but what's coming to mind is like, this was the album where, again, as a woman, like, I feel like Haley was really expressing her true anger. And it comes, we've talked about it before with Cancers, but it's kind of that moment of like, I think you described it perfectly in one episode, of like they're so sweet and nice, but all of a sudden they're coming out of their shell and you're like, who is this?
I think, yeah. So Cancer ascendant makes sense for me. The moon in Aquarius, I need convincing because I don't see it. I don't think.
I'm trying to, yeah, I don't even, when I was listening through, I definitely didn't have any Aquarius. Well, is the what's the Venus? I could see Scorpio Venus.
It's not.
Is it in the water family?
I mean, you're close with the Scorpio, but no, it's not water.
Virgo?
Hmm.
That actually does. I could see that. I feel like the Mercury has to be fire.
It's not.
Earth?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I feel like it's Taurus, but Virgo would make more sense.
It's Virgo.
Oh,
It's Virgo. Mercury, Venus, and Mercury and Venus are both Virgo. That does make more sense to me than the Aquarius moon. Maybe the Aquarius moon isn't that big of a factor in this record.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're so I will say, and we normally don't dive into the outer planets as much, but because a lot of the other elements in this chart are very earth heavy, maybe in this case it overpowers the Aquarius moon and it just doesn't come through. So we've got the big three. Now the challenge, matching a song that represents these signs. I think for the sake of our sanities, we'll do the moon last because I am still stumped. But Libra sun.
I would say maybe where the lines overlap.
Okay, so my mind was thinking that too, but I think I'm gonna go with looking up for the song I put with Libra.
I was
I
between those
think
two as well. Yeah.
I think the songs are sister songs. It's like part one and part two of a story, and they go together. So I think the two of them, two sides to the scale,
There you
make the
go.
Libra sun. I like that
Totally,
a lot.
totally agree. Yeah. That was the other one I was going to say, and exactly for that reasoning. So there you go.
Love that. Cancer rising.
As much as all I wanted to be a Scorpio, I could give it Cancer. It's
I
very deep, very emotional, a lot of longing, a lot of like nostalgic thoughts, which I feel
mhm.
like is connecting to like the Cancer. They love family, they love home, and like really wanting that.
I can see that. I'm gonna you're you might think I'm crazy. Um, but I'm thinking careful for Cancer. I feel like going back to the crab of it all. Outer shell, tough exterior. I'm bulldozing my way through the sand, but deep down inside, I'm a ball of mush that
Mhm.
can, be toppled over with a strong wind. You can't be too careful anymore, right? And I feel like cancers have that quality of like wanting to be tough, wanting to be big, bad, and scary, but deep down, like they are a big softy. They are a little bit afraid of things. And like when pushed, when provoked, will pull out the little pinchers. But without that push, without that nudge, I think they are very cautious people. I think they are very like, be careful of that. Don't do that. You should be aware of that kind of thing. So playing off the title, playing off the theme of the song, and also the energy of where it sounds like it's, in your face and loud and brash and like almost like it's starting a fight. It's not, it's kind of giving a warning. And that's giving Cancer energy to me.
I actually, yeah, I really like that explanation. And I will give you Cancer because so where I get Capricorn, like I spoke about, it's kind of the I guess there's like I want to say like an element of protection. And I want to say with the Cancer of it all, I actually would agree with you on it of like the Cancers I know are actually very nurturing and want to help and like can be protective. So I think that's kind of, since I said Capricorn originally, that's where I see the thread between Capricorn and Cancer.
And now for the big one, for the hard one. Um, Good old Aquarius moon. I
Okay.
have go ahead.
It's funny that we said it at the same time. I have one that I'm very curious if it's the same one that you're thinking. It's not, of course, what I would think initially, but I could see Misguided Ghosts.
That's not what I was thinking at all, but
Oh,
I can maybe see how you got there, but walk me through it.
well, I feel like Misguided Ghosts, it, it's cheating a little bit. But like I feel like the Aquarius part for me is there's not really a clear path ahead, but you're gonna figure it out, so it is kind of, again, a little bit of a stretch, but like marching to the beat of your own drum, and there is a bit of the, I guess I'll say, like, dreamy aspect.
I will give you Misguided Ghosts. The song, so I had two songs that I was thinking, and I ultimately landed on one. First thought was an easy thought. I was like, the only exception. It's the only love song. It's the exception. It's the different one. It's Aquarius. It's different. Let's keep it moving. But then I said, no,
Nah.
don't take the easy way out.
Yeah,
Really dive in deep.
I wouldn't give that one to you.
But you will give me Playing God because it questions, I think, the roles of religion and piousness and, relationships, and in terms of like treating people certain ways based on your beliefs and all of that. And like, for me, I think that gives Aquarius energy, not necessarily in the theme of the song, but as like the person singing the song, of you think you're this, you think you're that, but you're not thinking it of all the infinite possible ways this could go, you know? Like the line of, you don't deserve a point of view if the only thing you see is you. Aquarius are very of the people and for the people. And I think that line right there really kind of plays into that with like, you don't deserve a point of view if the only thing you see is you. You don't deserve to only, like, you don't deserve to be making rules. You don't deserve to be as high as you are or thought of as you are if you can't see past yourself. I think Aquarius are always thinking of the other person before themselves. Therefore, Playing God is the representation of the Aquarius moon on the record. And that is my final argument.
No, yeah, I like that. I do really like that.
Well, we did it. Okay, so we found the big three. We found the songs that match with the big three. We took this very roller coaster of emotions ride of an episode to talk about this album that is filled with all kinds of emotions. I don't think there's much else left to say other than thank you, Paramore, for creating this wonderful masterpiece that got both myself and Kate through tumultuous times in our lives. And as always, the plea for Haley to come on our show and talk us through her albums, talk us through her birth chart. We're ready when you are.
Yes, please. And yeah, happy 15 years to Brand New Eyes. Crazy that it's been that long, but as you said, just a very influential album in both of our lives. If you haven't listened to the album, definitely check it out. And I would be curious if it's your favorite Paramore album as well. It's our favorite, so let us know what your favorite is.
Thanks so much for listening to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. If you like what you heard, please take the time to subscribe and like, rate, and review wherever you listen. It really helps us out.
You can also find us on socials at Cosmic Cadence Pod on all platforms. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.